How are you, beautiful?
Oh, you're wearing my shirt and I'm not. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you don't gotta apologize. You ain't gotta
I didn't.
apologize for. We might have to apologize for this message here.
Now
Oh,
you,
okay.
oh, you have to read this book.
I know you were telling me that the other day. I'm gonna get that. You see that, Brains? Look who we have back with us, the great Jane Elliott. Now, Brains, I'm gonna put in this little disclaimer because I keep it 100 with everybody. Jane is a powerhouse. Jane has been on the forefront of the civil rights movement, fighting for women's rights. You got my cup. I love you. Fighting for women's rights, minority rights, gay rights, human rights. Some of these things that we're going to talk about are extremely controversial, and they should be. I mean, you got people on the other side that are creating insurrections and denying the verification of voters' rights, stopping voters' rights, just gunning you down in the street. But what I like to do here on the edge, exactly. Well, not all Republicans, there could be some independent people too. So what I want you to do is I want you to listen to this interview and edit and filter. Again, I may agree or disagree with what Jane says, but she's been on the battlefield, and I'm a Black American woman, and my civil liberties and our democracy is hanging in the balance. So put on your bootstraps, get ready for this, get out of your feelings, turn your volume up, and listen to the great Jane Elliott. Now, let me tell you who she is in case you don't know. Oh, yes, in case you don't know. Jane Elliott was a third grade teacher that taught her class about Martin Luther King. And then she had to go in a couple weeks later and explain to them why this man was assassinated, why he was killed for trying to bring harmony and peace between whites and Blacks. So she created this great experiment, the Blue-Eyed, Brown-Eyed Project. It's historic. Google it. It'll come up all over the world, over and over and over again, where she separated the blue-eyed children from the brown-eyed children and subjected the blue-eyed children to discrimination. She has repeatedly done this for presidents, for universities. She's done it on Oprah. I can't tell you how many times it's been done, but now they don't want it done. She's been shunned. She's not able to speak in the universities the way that she used to. And I think it's a goddamn shame. They do not want people to, was I not supposed to tell that?
No, that's fine. But you see, I think it's funny. My name is on the banned list along with Mark Twain and Alice Walker. Can you imagine being in better company? That's just the biggest compliment I've ever been paid. They are that afraid of this old, white, short, fat woman that they will ban what she says from college campuses so that they won't be threatened in the future with people who know the truth.
Well, I haven't seen you in a while. Now, I know that you're old and fat, but I mean, you're old and, but I didn't know that you had got fat. You ain't got fat, Jane?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. But I love you so.
Thank you.
I love you so. So anyway, that's just kind of a snippet, Brains. I've got, this is her third or fourth time, and you just don't know what an honor this is to have her wisdom here on the show. And we're going to talk about the upcoming elections and why we need to get out and vote. Now, if you are a Republican, we're going to call them Republicans. I know what you like to call them, but we're going to call them Republicans. And you have an opposing point of view, contact me. I want to talk to you. I want to have a conversation with you. As long as it's civil, and, there might be something I can learn. I'm not going to lump all y'all together. Okay, so contact me. But in the meantime, in between time, we are here with Jane Elliott. Hello again. I love you.
I love you, cousin. And we have to remember that we are 30th through 50th cousins because we both came from the same ancestor back there in Africa. And that's the reason I can relate to what's going on, because a part of my DNA came from a country in Africa. And you can't just keep that down and put down inside yourself because it is bound to come out. And that's what has happened with me. I can relate well to people who don't look like me because my ancestors didn't look like me. They looked like you.
Right.
And the
Okay.
ancestors.
But when did you come to this realization? How did you become so cool with being down with the brown?
well, I came so cool to being down with the brown when the women at US West and US West Direct and Public Service of Colorado, who hired me to do the exercise with their employees for 3 years, each of those groups. And the women who were facilitating the exercise were brown women. They were melanaceous and melanotic women. And if I said something that was out of my ignorance, they would say, "But Jane," and I'd say, "Thank you very much." They educated me. They told me what I needed to know. They treated me like an equal human being. They treated me like somebody that they could teach so that I would be better when I left those corporations and went to work with other people. I learned more from those women than I could possibly have learned from reading a book.
Okay. So now, but you grew up in Iowa. Good Lord.
No, I grew older. I grew older in Iowa.
Okay. Well,
I grew up when I left Iowa.
all right. But your father was pretty progressive in his thinking.
No, my father was progressive in his thinking after he saw the film with my blue-eyed, brown-eyed children in it, after he saw that film with my third graders. And at that point, you couldn't tell a black joke around my father. He would either say, "Are you going to tell that? You really think you ought to tell that here?" Or he'd say, "Excuse me," and he'd leave. He'd leave the room. He'd do that to his sons and his daughters. If you're going to tell jokes like that, I'm not going to be a part of it. He learned watching. He watched the film of those little third graders going through that exercise. Those little white third graders who had never done anything wrong in their lives, and I was treating them the way we treat people of color in this country, each group. And after I showed my father that film, and after it was done, he stood up, took his red handkerchief out of his the back pocket of his bib overalls, blew his nose, wiped his eyes, and said, "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old."
Wow.
Yeah. So now when psychologists say, "How could you do that to those poor little children?" I think of my father saying, "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old." My father used that to learn something. And what he learned was those kids had an experience that his kids would never have to have because they were white. And he had never had to have it because he was white. But he had watched other people go through it. He had heard about other people going through it. He had heard horrible remarks made about people going through it. And at that point, he decided he was never going to do that again. He would never sit back and listen to that crap again. It changed his life. And he was probably 60 years old at the time.
So was your mother progressive?
Hell no. No, she wasn't progressive.
You said, "Oh, hell no." No, your mom was white.
Well, she was white Irish Catholic, and she kicked me out of the family after my father died, because she called me and said, "Don't come over here anymore. Nobody's comfortable when you're around."
What?
Yeah, she did. And I was from a family of 7 children. We were very close. Our siblings we were very close as siblings because we had nothing else. We had no money, and we lived on a farm. And she said, "Don't come over here anymore. You have ruined our reputation in this community with that blue-eyed, brown-eyed thing." Well, there are only 1,000 people in this little town, so there weren't too many people to hate me. But there were other people outside that town who hated me. And a lot of people will hate me after they hear what I say to you today, because I'm going to tell you that you aren't black and I'm not white.
Well, I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that.
I know that, but
this is your
but
shirt.
A whole lot of people don't.
This is a sweatshirt. It says, "Racial prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance."
Yep.
And I live by that. So let's get right down to the real nitty gritty. Let's talk about this upcoming election, because I want to get that out of the way. I'm concerned. I was at a great fundraiser yesterday with talking to some political figures here, and they were all ramped up and excited. But what if these Republicans deny the election? We're looking at civil war, possibly.
We are looking at a situation in which people have been exposed to television and cell phones, and that's where they get their information. And they don't get right information from those 2 areas. They turn to the stations that are going to support their ignorance and their self-imposed ignorance, and those are the things they watch. Donald Trump, in his bedside table in a locked drawer, has a copy of the book, The New World Order, which is the writings of Adolf Hitler. He has taken for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years, his idea for governing out of what Adolf Hitler taught him. When he first started to run his mouth, I thought, this guy's Hitlerian. And then I thought, Jane, you're exaggerating. You've been doing this work too long. That's not what's going on. Then I read the book, When at Times the Mob is Swayed. Everybody should get that book and read it. When at Times the Mob is Swayed. Read that book. And in that book, you'll find out that out of Adolf Hitler's writings is where Donald Trump learned to govern. If you don't understand that, and you see, the reason I understand is I was born in 1933. That was the year Adolf Hitler and Franklin Roosevelt came to power. So from 1933 till 1945, I listened to the kinds of things Adolf Hitler, we talked about Adolf Hitler doing because we heard it on the radio. There was no television for our house at that time. And my father was absolutely infuriated by what Adolf Hitler was doing. That's in my background. So when Donald Trump starts to talk the way he does and do this thing with his hand signals, I knew that we were dealing with a Hitlerian person. And then I read the book, When at Times the Mob is Swayed. And it says in black and white, this is where Donald Trump learned to govern. If you don't understand that, people, you need to realize that you are headed for, some of you evangelical Christians want a theocracy. You do not want a country in which the government is directed by the religion. People, this is not a good thing. This country was founded on we will have separation of church and state. And we did have until in 1954, President Eisenhower allowed the Knights of Columbus to lobby their congressmen and get the words "under God" inserted into the pledge. Now think about that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible. That's what it said, one nation, indivisible. Christians got the words "under God" inserted between one nation and indivisible, thereby dividing us according to religion. Those two words do not belong in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Wow. And neither do they belong on our money. If you're going to put "In God We Trust" on our money, then underneath "In God We Trust" we have to write "All others pay cash."
Exactly. All right, so let me ask you another question. All right, we're talking about blacks, whites, and Christians. What is this attack on the Jews? Now, and I'll be honest with you, Jewish people have been ride or die with me. I have some of the best Jewish friends. I've been to bas mitzvahs and weddings, and I'm about to go to the Holy Land. They have taught me, they have loved me, they have nurtured me, they have supported me. Why do people hate Jews?
Because we are scared to death and because we are ignorant. We don't realize that the first 5 books of what we call the Holy Bible, the first 5 books of the Old Testament came right out of the Torah.
Right.
If it hadn't been for Jews, there would be no Christians.
Right.
If it hadn't been for blacks, there would be no whites. If it hadn't been for women,
my Savior Jesus.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm not finished.
Oh.
If it hadn't been for women, there would be no men. So if we could teach that without Jews, there would be no Christians or Muslims, we could do away with anti-Semitism. If we could teach without blacks, there would be no whites, because all we whites are is blacks that faded over the centuries. If we could teach that, there would be no racism. If we could teach without women, there would be no men. We could do away with sexism. That would give us time to hate people because of their age or because of their politics. But we'd have lots of time to do that if we weren't concentrating on racism, ageism, racism, sexism, and anti-Semitism. Those three things are all based on self-imposed ignorance. The truth is out there, and if you think it isn't out there, then you get this book, The Destructionist. And if you haven't read The Destructionist, for God's sake, people, read it. Now, you don't have time to read it before Tuesday, but believe me when I tell you that if you do not vote a good ticket on Tuesday, we are in the situation of losing our democracy. We are on the edge of losing our democracy because of the self-imposed ignorance of the people who will follow Donald Trump into the vast wasteland. You have to realize that this is the most important.
And I say this, that my Savior, Jesus Christ, was a Jew. So
He's an Ethiopian Jew, and it says in the Bible that he had kinky woolly hair and feet of bronze.
Exactly.
Now, I hope that next Sunday, everybody who goes to worship will look at that picture of the kneeling Jesus looking up behind the minister and say, hold it, fellas, that is what my Jesus looks like.
No, I just came from Rome and the Vatican. And Jane, When I went through there, the tour guides were totally honest. How Michelangelo depicted his picture of Jesus because of his fascination with Apollo.
Right. Well, makes sense to me.
And so everyone has just morphed, and how people just go along to get along. What happened to common sense thinking? It's not common sense anymore. Everyone has an agenda, but this agenda is driving us into the ground. Now, millennials, you're a school teacher, you're an educator. They're not having this conversation. They don't even want to be male or female. They're non-binary now. They don't care nothing about that. They're not talking about, the color of people's skin. They want clean water. They want to be able to work from their device. They want technology. It's a different time. We are going through this lunar vortex where we're trying to get through this portal. The whole universal alignment is off. And I don't know how we're going to be able to stabilize it. Forget about reeling it in, because I don't think there's any going back. But what do we do to stabilize?
Well, number one, you just mentioned common sense. Common sense in uncommon amounts is what the world calls wisdom. We've got damn little common sense in the United States right now, for the very reason that you said. They're into technology. They are so into technology that they cannot relate to something that isn't about technology. They're quite certain that they can solve all their problems through technology. Our problems are not technology. Our problems are what's going on in our brains. Our problems is the fact that we haven't taught the truth to students in schools K through 16 for the last about 75 years. We have been teaching a lie. We've been teaching a lie for as long as we've had schools, because the whole idea of several different races came out of the Spanish Inquisition. Now think about that. That was in the 14 and 1500s. That's as long as this racism crap has been going on. And the word race, meaning a specific group of people, came out of France in 1580. That recently, that word had the meaning a specific group of people. Before that, we were all just members of the family of man. We are different colors, different nationalities, different political views, different religions, but we were all considered members of the human race. There's only one race on the face of the earth, and that's what millennials are beginning to realize. They're beginning to realize that these so-called white folks who don't exist, unless you have a severe problem. You aren't white, you're a shade of brown. But these light-skinned, pale, stale males are suddenly finding out that if they want their children, their grandchildren...
Pale, stale males.
Well, that's what they are. That's what they are.
Love it.
And they know they're stale, and they know that when people decided to write words that describe human beings, they used male for men, and in order to have a word for women, they added the chemical symbol for iron, Fe, to the word for men. Female, Fe, the chemical symbol for iron added to the word male, which means that women are males with iron added. We were there first, and we've got the iron. We've got the ability to reproduce. I have never met a man who could hold a living body inside his body for 9 months, and then at the end of the 9 months, expel something the size of an orange weighing about 6 pounds through a hole the size of a green pea. I've never met a man who could do that. Wow. And until I meet a man that can, he hadn't better tell me what I can do with my body. Until they are as adept at reproducing as women are, they'd better just simply do what men used to do in the long ago time. They better just worship us, because we've got the power. We've got the power to put them in power, which is what we did 2 years ago. 6 years ago. Women came out in huge numbers and voted Donald Trump out of office. That's what could happen this time, and that's what should happen. Wait.
But let me pump your brakes right here. These white women is cold-blooded too. Okay.
Hell yes,
they are stirring it up. I mean, there is some, and it started with that little what's her name, Sarah Palin. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it started with her. Okay, and and they have been running rogue ever since. I mean, what's this one in Arizona? I don't even keep up with their names because it makes me nauseous. But she says, well, when I win, she's not even going to accept the fact if she loses.
And Donald Trump hasn't accepted it yet. And what has that done? Has it kept Joe Biden from doing a job? No. Has it kept all those Democrats who are determined to make life better for everybody in this country from doing their jobs? No. He is a sounding, what is the phrase in the Bible that describes him too? Something about rattling bass and sounding cymbal. That's all he is. He's a noise. He isn't intelligent. He isn't forward thinking. He isn't sensitive. He doesn't care about what happens to people other than his wealthy friends. And that man has declared bankruptcy at least 5 times. So that he doesn't know how to work well with money. He knows virtually nothing except how to do what Hitler did.
Well, the thing is, he's an equal opportunity hater. He's hated
Absolutely.
He's hated on everybody. He's hated on, his grandchildren are Jews. He's hated on the Jews. He's hated on the Mexicans. He's grabbing women vaginas. His own vice president, put the call out to X him. His wife, he treats her like sloppy seconds. I don't know how she tolerates any of that. His children, he is so self-absorbed. I had never really understood what a narcissistic personality was until I observed this joker, and he's mastered it. And people are following him like the Pied Piper. And it's sad. When you look at some of the people that were involved in this insurrection, I look at them, Billy Joe Bob that's been on the farm, maybe down the road from where you grew up in Iowa. Never probably seen a Black person, never probably traveled outside of his current circle of influence, and needs the medical benefits from the Obamacare, needs the government subsidies to run his farm, needs the education and wisdom to send his children to school. And he's just, he's toting a gun. And he feels that he has some power. And like you said once before, the white race, or, what we perceive as Caucasians and the white race, feel that they are going to be the minority in the next 30 years, if not less.
But you see, that's the problem. They don't know. They do not understand that we, so-called white people, we Melanie-Meek people, have been the numerical minority ever on the face of the earth. Right now, only 15 to 18% of the population, of the human population of the earth, only 15 to 18% is classified as white. And less than half of those are males. So white males constitute less than 6% of the population of the earth, and they think they should run the show because they don't have much melanin in their skin. Do you realize how really ridiculous this whole thing is? For people to not understand that the Proud Boys, every time I see the Proud Boys and hear the Proud Boys and listen to things about the Proud Boys, I think, wait a minute, people. You Proud Boys are talking about Christianity. You Proud Boys have got it right into your souls. However, you need to realize that when God sent somebody to welcome the baby Jesus, he didn't send 3 proud boys. He sent 3 wise men out of the East, who were men of color. So let's tell them, stop talking about being proud boys and try to become wise men. They will never become wise men because they don't have the ability to do that. You got to have a few more brain cells than these proud boys have, and you've got to have brain cells that are active. But if you're following a man who says he's a genius, my father would say about him, he says he's a genius. Well, if he's probably half as smart as he thinks he is, and that means he's twice as smart as he is. Now, a genius is 140 IQ points. Half of that is 70 IQ points, which makes you just barely intelligent, and 70 is twice 35. So his IQ is probably closer to 35. That's what my dad would say. If that man was half as smart as he thinks he is, he'd be twice as smart as he is. That's about the situation we've got going with the man who bought his way and threatened his way and yelled his way into the presidency. He got into the White House and he was going to, and I remember when Ronald Reagan was president, and he said to the people, "I'm trying to save the White House for you white people." And I went ballistic. I went, what the hell are you saying here? There are no white people. I am not a white person. I am a descendant of people who came from Africa, and so is everybody else. For a politician living in the White House to make that statement is absolutely ridiculous. We've got to change the name of the White House to the President's Residence.
No,
No,
I
no,
would say
no.
the people's house.
No, the president's residence, because the rest of us, the president's the only one who's allowed to go there. It isn't the people's house. The rest of us aren't allowed to be there, but the president is. That's the president's residence, and that's what it ought to be called.
Wow. So as we progress and we move forward,
We aren't moving forward.
I know, I know. But you know what? I want to reframe it. I want to be optimistic. I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't want to be downtrodden. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be living in fear. I'm not going to live in fear. I refuse to live in fear.
Oh, yes, you are. You may think you won't live in fear, but you will. Make no mistake about it. Do you have sons?
No, well, yeah, one, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But
You
I'm
have to
not.
worry about
I'm
him
not
every
gonna.
day?
I'm not gonna live in fear because I got the blood of Jesus all over me, and I've already had my come to Jesus meeting. And if that is what is end up to be, that's what it's going to be. But I am not going to. I was in a nail salon, and the woman just, her and her friend got into a political conversation, and they talking loud. And I'm the only piece of pepper in the salt shaker, right? And I'm sitting there, and she wants to instigate, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let you bait me. I'm not going to play the race card, because when I go, I'm going to shuffle the whole damn deck on your ass. I'm not going to just play into this narrative, this white privilege, all this old BS. There's no privilege. You got to earn privilege. One of my friends during the, what's his name? George Floyd incident. Oh, April, I don't know what to do, honey. I'm going to use my white privilege. I told her it's not no damn Visa card. You can't just pull it out and it's okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's influence. It's a mindset. You've got to reframe it. You've got to change your mind. If we were the barbarians that people depict Black and browns to be, we should have had this handled a long time ago.
But you've been handling it, and handling it beautifully, knowing full well that within 30 years, people who are melanaceous and melanotic are going to be running this show. That's the way it's going to be. And that's the reason the Proud Boys and all the rest of those fools are out there, is they're afraid that when people of color get power, they're going to want to do to us what we have done to them. I would say to them, don't worry about that, fellas. That's not what's going to happen. When I did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise the first time, the blue-eyed people, the brown-eyed people were on top, and the blue-eyed boys in the bathroom were saying what they were going to do to the brown-eyed kids when the blue eyes got on top. And and that was on Friday. I went back to school on Monday expecting all hell to break loose. Those blue-eyed kids were less vicious to the brown-eyed kids, and they wouldn't discriminate against them the way they had been discriminated against by them. And then on Tuesday, we got in the magic circle, and I said, now look, colored kids, I want to know. You blue-eyed boys said you were going to get even with these brownies when you got on top. You didn't get even with them. You were kind to them. Why did you do that? And almost in a chorus, they said, because we found out how it feels to be on the bottom, and we didn't want to make anybody feel the way we felt the day we were on the bottom. And I thought, oh my God, there is the answer. There's the answer. I am not afraid of people of color getting even with me, which is the reason I'm very careful about how I treat people of color. I treat them as though they are my cousins. Now, I've got some cousins that I don't particularly like. I would just assume Herschel Walker would stop trying to be enslaved.
God. And he gives me a headache when I see him on TV. He just makes my stomach hurt.
But he doesn't realize that he is being used as a slave by Donald Trump.
That's right.
He is reinstituting slavery with Herschel Walker and with that musician. What's his name? Who everybody thinks is so wonderful.
But he's troubled. I and you're gonna get on me, but I pray for that old Kanye. That old Kanye. You know what? Because he already has attested to the world that he has a mental illness.
And no, he is a wannabe house Negro. He is a house Negro.
Yeah,
Make no mistake about
you know what? When he's in his own world, and living with $1 billion and got him a pretty white woman with fake boobs and fake booty and all that kind of stuff, and you're on television and everybody thinks you're a genius. Number one, I never thought he was a genius, but now he's really showed what an idiot he is. And he is self-destructing right in front of the entire world. And you know what hurts me more than anything, Jane, is that people are rallying around it. They're baiting him. They're pushing him. They're waiting for him to do something destructive to himself. And that is really what hurts me. I think that's why I have a little empathy for the brother.
You're welcome to have a little empathy for him, but don't let it go too far. Don't be foolish enough to think that Donald Trump is going to support him if Donald Trump gets the presidency, that he is going to support any person of color. He will drop him like a bad habit, and he'll drop Herschel Walker like a bad habit, and he'll let them live with the situation he has put them in. Herschel Walker has no business trying to get into politics. He can't spell politics, but then neither can Donald Trump. So you need to realize that they're being used, and they are willing to be used because they are suffering from self-imposed ignorance.
I totally get that. I totally get that. So what do we do? What do we do? We go to the ballot box, we vote,
yep. And we change education. We change what is being taught in the schools in this country today. We stop using the Mercator projection map. We start using the Peters projection map. We start teaching the truth. We take the words under God out of the pledge and the words in God we trust off our money. We go back to the times when we had separation of church and state in this country. If kids are going to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag in the morning in third grade classrooms, the teachers have the responsibility to say, you do not have to say the words under God in the pledge when you say it in here, because that separates us. That I had children whose parents didn't want them to pray publicly. So I said to my students, you don't have to say the words under God in the pledge because lots of people don't believe in praying publicly. So you don't have to say it. So those kids would just stop their mouths when it came to under God. Some of them would just sit down because they didn't want to say the words under God. They had the right to express themselves and to practice their own religion in a way that was not harmful to anybody else. I don't expect everybody to believe it the way as I do. In fact, they kicked me out of the Osage Methodist Church because I said she instead of he for God, because I think that God is a spirit and has neither color nor gender. Mm-hmm. I think it's time. Spirits don't have color and they don't have gender.
No, they don't.
And when you go and when people pray and look up at the sky as if that's where God is, no. Heaven is right here in another dimension on this earth. All you do is turn the corner into that other dimension. I hope I get to turn the corner, but I'm not ready to do it yet. So don't shoot me now. But I'm always being threatened with death. I go to a college and there are 3 little boys there wearing those red caps with the white letters on that say, make America hate again. Now it says great again, but it means hate again. Donald Trump means to make us hate one another. And they're talking and they're pointing their little guns at me like this. And I stop and I say, look, fellas, I know what you're talking about. You'd like to see me dead because of what I do to decrease the level of racism in this country. That's right. You can kill me. Then I'll be with my husband and my oldest son. However, you need to realize that if you kill me because of what I do, you might make a martyr out of me. And then you might have to spend the rest of your lives celebrating Jane Elliott Day once a year. Yes. Now, do you want to do that? Yes. And then they all do, no, no, no. And they make a cross and no, no, no. I say, then shut up and listen while I'm talking.
Exactly.
They have just identified themselves to every person of color in the room. And before I get finished speaking, they get over the back of their seat, force their way into the aisle and run out of the building so they won't get caught by the kids of color who are really angry at what they have just done, because they would like to destroy the person who says there's only one race on the face of the earth. It's the human race, and we are all members of it. The idea of several different races is a lie. It is not a myth. It is a lie, and it's time to get over it.
Let me ask you a question now. Okay, so you've talked about 45 extensively, but what about these cohorts? All these people that are following him, the Lindsey Grahams and the Speaker of the Republican Speaker of the House, and all of these other. I'm trying to find a nice word for them. All these other people, they're all rallying around. They're all rallying around this lie. You're only as strong as your team, and there's no I in team. There's a lot of people. Okay, and so we know that the money is coming from the Republican Party, and that 45 is going to have a lot of influence when it comes to that, and he's going to run again. But why are they so invested in the lie?
Because most of them are too young to know better. When I was a kid, there was a puppet master called Edgar Bergen, and he had Charlie McCarthy on one knee, and
right.
What's his name? What's the name of the other one? Charlie McCarthy, and anyway, when I see Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell running their mouths, Mitch McConnell, only I call him Mitch McConnell because he thinks he's in total control, honey. However, when I see them talking, I think of Edgar Bergen with Charlie McCarthy on one knee and the other guy on the other, and I think, oh my God, there they are. Edgar Bergen would throw his voice into their mouths, and his hands were up their backs, and he was running their mouths like this.
Right.
But their voices were coming out of his voice, and they would say the most ridiculous and ignorant things. Oh my God. So now when I hear Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell talking, I think, and the puppet master's words are coming out of their mouths. You need to get a picture of Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen and what's the name of the dumb one?
Oh, I don't know. We had to Google
how awful. What?
No, I said I had to Google it.
Well, it's just, they are so similar to what Edgar Bergen created with those hand puppets that once you see it, you can't possibly put any faith whatsoever in anything either one of them says, because they are only parroting what Donald Trump has told them to say. And anyone who allows Donald Trump to tell them what to say is way less than highly intelligent.
I just don't understand. There's always an ROI. What is in it for them? I mean, they're laying at death's door. They all look like the cats done drug them in. They don't think about their grandchildren or their children's children. They don't think about the planet. They have enough money. And the money that they have is going to be, they want to ruin it for everybody. There's not going to be any Social Security. They're going to cut our social services. They're going to cut our Medi-Cal, our Medicaid, all of these things that we have invested in. They even made me want to sign up for my Social Security early to make sure that I'm kind of locked in. It's crazy. I still can't get my head around what is in it for them. And they don't see into the game.
They haven't experienced things in the past that will make them aware of what they don't want to experience in the future. Okay. The years in this country since the Second World War haven't been bad. We've been in pretty good shape since the Second World War. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been a whole lot better than it was in the Great Depression and during the Second World War. But the people who were born after the Second World War, like Donald Trump, they don't know enough about going without things in order to get through the day. They don't know enough about, they've never experienced turn off your lights at night because an enemy plane might come over and bomb your house. You can't buy sugar or you can't buy butter, even though you have cattle that are producing the butter. You can't keep the butter at home. You have to send the cream to the creamery so that the butter can go to the troops. They haven't had that experience. They haven't lived with a ration book. They haven't had to live with ration stamps. They haven't had to be limited in what they could buy because of having to feed and clothe and house and equip an army going to protect liberty all over the world. They haven't had that experience. And until they've had that experience, they're going to be ignorant and happily ignorant. And we've got a whole lot of people who are happily ignorant in this country because they don't realize how dumb they are.
Well, I mean, but you look at this, it's not just that's why I say it's a lunar vortex. It's not just here in the United States. Look at how Russia invaded Ukraine. Look at what's going on in the European Union. It's happening all over China. It's
wait a minute. They aren't the first people who ever did that. The people, British people invaded every country.
Yeah.
We in the United States have taken over countries that we thought would be better off if we told them how to live. That is not something new. What is something new now is we have no memory of the past. And we didn't learn enough about the past in school to get us ready to see to it that it doesn't happen again. Those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. And that's exactly what's happening. Young people don't know about Adolf Hitler, so they are really quite infatuated with this fool. They do not know what he has in mind, and neither does he, because he is infatuated with power. And he doesn't realize that having power means that there's some responsibility that goes along with power. Now, if we had taught the 3 R's of reading, of rights, respect, and responsibility in the schools to these kids who are now in the Proud Boys, we wouldn't have the problems we have with them now. But we didn't. We taught them reading, writing, arithmetic, and called that the 3 R's. Well, that's not the 3 R's. Reading is the only one that begins with R. Writing begins with W, and arithmetic begins with A. So it's time for teachers to stop saying, I teach the 3 R's in my classroom, because every time somebody says it, I want to pick up the eraser and shove it right down their throat. Because no, you don't teach the 3 R's in your classroom. But if you insist on teaching the 3 R's, then teach the 3 R's of rights. Every child in that room has rights. Respect. Every person is expected to respect their rights, and responsibility. And you will be held responsible if you do not respect the rights of your peers, of the teachers, of the janitors, of the secretaries, of the administrators, of the groundskeepers. Everybody should be taught rights, respect, and responsibility. And then we wouldn't have Donald Trump springing up, because other people would say, wait a minute, fool. These folks have rights and you aren't respecting them. We're going to hold you responsible. We don't do that. We could do that. We could raise children who would say, when somebody did something ugly, you just disrespected his rights. And I'm going to call somebody and tell them that you did. And you're going to have to live with the responsibility for what you just did. That's what we have to have. And I don't mean that we have to have people calling the sheriff if some woman decides to have an abortion. You need everybody needs to read this book. I'm telling you, get this book, and you'll find out one of the things you find out.
Pull it back just a little bit, yeah, so that we can see this. Look at that.
Starry Messenger, Neil deGrasse Tyson. People, get this book and read it, and you're going to find out something that will blow you away. Most of the abortions in this country, in women, is because their bodies reject that baby. 30% of the abortions that happen because the body rejects that baby. Now, if that's what's happening, then those abortions must be conducted with the grace of God, because human beings don't do it, but women regularly have miscarriages, regularly have abortions that they don't call abortions, because after the first or second or third month, all of a sudden they aren't pregnant anymore, because their body rejected that child. It wasn't a child at that time. It was a fertilized egg. And you need to realize that sometimes nature takes care of things in a way that will cause something ugly from not happening. We've got to stop talking about women's right to choose and say to men, wait a minute, fellas, in the future, if you contribute to an unwanted pregnancy, if that woman has to have an abortion, you have to have a vasectomy, because you have contributed to a woman wanting to have an abortion. She shouldn't have to hold this she shouldn't have to be totally responsible for this. You got it started. You will have a vasectomy. Now, fellas, vasectomies are relatively painless. They're done in 15 minutes in the doctor's office. My husband's didn't bother him at all. And you won't be responsible for somebody else getting pregnant. That, it seems to me, would be a perfectly logical thing for people to say. Now, if the U.S. Sperm Court, which is what we now have instead of the Supreme Court, because of
U.S. Sperm Court, oh Lord have mercy.
That is what it has become, because that's all that's all they think about is sperm. All right, if the U.S. Sperm Court says women can't have an abortion, then because they're going to punish women for having that moment of real joy, then we're going to punish men too. If you cause an unwanted pregnancy, you must submit to involuntary vasectomy. It's simple, it's cheap, it's easy, and it can be reversed. You cannot reverse motherhood. Once you have a child, even if you give it away, you hear that child crying in the night for as long as you live. I've just finished reading the book, The Ones That Left. Oh my God, if you haven't read it, get it and read it if you want to be sick to your stomach. And it's about the girls who got pregnant and left home and left their babies in a child care situation and came home without those babies. Everybody has to read that before you contribute to the funds of somebody who's going to do away with abortion. Read that book, please. Put down your damn cell phone, put down your television control, and get a book. And I don't mean get a romance novel. I mean get a book that you can learn something from. Something that will save all of us, and it will shut up some of these people who are doing really disastrous things for this country.
Well, I tell you, it's a wealth of knowledge, brains, and you better get in line, because you're about to get left behind, because Jane Elliott is no joke. And I just am so glad that there are people like you that are still sensible, that are still fighting. Well, I mean, trying to fight the good fight for all of us. You don't have to do this.
But you have to realize that I didn't come up with this myself. I learned it from people who look like you, because people who look like you are the only ones who know it. And you're the only ones who know it because you are the only ones who live with it on a daily basis. You know that, and I know that. And we put you through the mill and then say to you, we're doing this because we love you. Now, somebody this week wrote to me and said, I love you. That's all about love. And I wrote back and said, no, it's not. I'm going to give you an opportunity to make a difference in your life. In the future, we're going to start a new society, and you are going to be guaranteed either love or justice. If I guarantee you love, you might not get justice. If I guarantee you justice, you might not get love. I said that I say that often to groups of people. I say, now, Well, everybody who wants to guarantee love, even though they might not get justice, raise your hand. Maybe 2 hands go up. Everybody else looks like, oh, that's not such a good idea. Now, well, everyone who wants to be guaranteed justice, even though you might not get love, raise your hand. Every hand goes up, because this is not about love. My father used to whip us. Oh, he whipped us because my mother couldn't control us, and she'd say, "Wait till your dad gets home." So Dad would come home. She'd tell him what we'd done. And he'd go up to the lilac bush and get a switch and come back and switch every one of us, 5 of us, right down the line. And everybody else just took it because they were brave. I screamed my head off because I didn't want him switching my legs. And my mother would say, while he was whipping us, "He's doing this because he loves you." And at the age of 5, I would think, could you love us a little less? I didn't appreciate that kind of love. That wasn't love. That was doing something to keep his wife happy. And if she had done the job she should have been doing, he wouldn't have had to do that job. She should have taken care of those problems when they happen. People, don't throw love at me unless you're going to do it in a just way. I want justice, and I want it now. And I don't want justice for just us. I want justice for all of us. And I hope you'll stop calling us Americans. Americans are all the people who live from the North Pole down to the most southern point of South America. All those citizens are Americans. The people in the 48 contiguous states, Alaska, Hawaii, and the islands off the southeastern coast of the United States are U.S. Americans. So let's start saying we U.S. Americans, or we in the U.S., because U.S. spells us. And it's all about us. Stop talking as though we are all of the Americans. We aren't. We are the people in the United States of America, and that's what Donald Trump has been trying to do. He's been trying to divide us. We have to refuse to be divided, and we have to continue to call us the United States of America. The most important word in that title is united. It's what put us together. We are 48 united states, and we've got to stay united. That means voting somebody other than that idiot woman out in Arizona. Sorry about that. You knew I'd get back to elections.
Well, you know what? Again, I love you from the bottom of my socks, baby, because my heart just isn't deep enough. And I mean that. And that is true love. And it's not just because you have been at the forefront to fight for people of my skin color, but you're fighting for all people, white people included. The right people, okay? Asian, gay, it doesn't matter. You're fighting for the human race. And I thank you for being a soldier on that battlefield. Are you doing, are you coming out with a new book? What are you doing now? Outside of raising hell?
I'm raising hell, absolutely. I do several virtual things, sometimes several a day, several a week, because people really want to hear what I have to say, because I think is hopeful.
And you're smart.
Well, I'm not smart. I just know enough to recognize the truth when I see it. A whole lot of people don't. Martin Luther King Jr. was all about hope. Hope for me is an acronym for holding on to positive energy. And if we hold on to positive energy, we can put a stop to this crap. I've got a sign on my wall at home, and it says, "Find something you would die for and live for it."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's what not everybody finds something they would die for. I've been threatened with death lots of times. I've come close several times. However, you have to realize that somebody has said, no power on earth can stop a man with a dream or an idea whose time has come. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. It is more alive now than it was when he was living. We tried to kill it. We couldn't kill it. It's more alive now than it was when he was living. Yes. The idea of one race is an idea whose time has come. And no power on earth is going to be able to stop it, because that is going to be the savior of humankind. When we give up the idea of several different races and then understand that we're all members of the same race, and God created the human race, human beings created racism. Anything you create, you can destroy. We could destroy racism if we decided to. It's time to make that decision.
Well, I'm team you. Let's drink to it.
Let's drink to it. On this side, this thing says brains. I really like that.
And you are a brain. Oh, I love you so much.
Brains.
Thank you so much, Jane, for being here on the edge with me and my brains. We're going to follow you. We're going to play your other interviews. I want you, are you still active on your website? Are you still uploading information there? And
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Every day I spend more time on, because I learned so much on the website. I learned so much with that darn website that I don't know it, because I don't have a whole lot of time for watching television, because the only thing that public television and the news are the only things I watch on television, because the rest is so ungodly childish.
Oh, I like that childish, mindless, crazy stuff.
Oh,
I have to get away from the distraction. I can't watch uh mainstream news or media. I was thinking my mother was alive, bless her heart, and she would say, "Ooh, baby, don't turn the channel because Wolf Blitzer says it's breaking news." I said, "Mama, that was the same news that was breaking at 8 o'clock."
yeah,
It
yeah.
it is ingrained in your brain. It programs you, it hypnotizes you. You hear the same thing, these different pundits. What happened to the Walter Cronkites and the Barbara Walters that were, and they were tainted too, but they were a little
Yeah, yeah.
but for the most part, they delivered the news. But all these pundits and this name calling and, the money is behind. Why isn't the FCC finding, you know, Fox News and people that are putting out blatant lies? It,
Well, number one, you're
us.
missing. Hey, you're mispronouncing the name of that channel, Fox News. You have to realize that in the word "come some other mother," the O has the short U sound. So if you put the short U sound in the word Fox, you get fucks.
Yikes. Well, it's doing it, and it's not doing it in the most delightful way, I'll tell you that. It's really
No, right, but that's what it is. That's what Rupert Murdoch does to the news. He
wow.
boxes the news. Yeah, you need to realize that this is not news. What he's putting out there is not news.
No.
And the people that are saying it don't believe a word they're saying. Not one. They don't believe it, so their listeners shouldn't believe it. They are not saying the truth, and they know they aren't. They are being told to tell the lie because he can make money with the lie. And if you haven't read Robert Reich's book, The System, about the Business Roundtable, you better get that book and read it this week. And then you'll know
Well,
what's
hell,
going on.
will you do me a favor? Will you just send me an email with the last top 5 books? Because I need to go in there and do it. I hope they're on Audible because I don't have time to be reading like you all day long. I'm trying to interview people, but I really have to get more abreast. But I don't know if it's going to make me feel depressed. But
I don't care whether you're depressed. I don't care. I don't care whether you're depressed. I want you to be educated.
You're right. You're right.
I know lots of depressed idiots. I'd rather have a depressed educated person than a depressed idiot. Go to my website and download the printed learning materials. And one of the printed learning materials is a bibliography of about 100 books on racism alone. And the first thing in that is a set of typical statements that white folks make that think they aren't racist. The second page is a set of clarifications of what you just said. The third page is a set of commitments to combat racism. And the fourth page is a bibliography. Go and read through those statements that white folks make and read the clarifications. Read how people react to them when they're on the receiving end of them. And if
I know,
every white person,
I know. I don't see color. I love that when you say you don't see color. Well, if you didn't see color, I know you don't see color because if you did, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants. I love that. That cracks me up every single time. Yeah, and I don't want to be translucent to you. I want you to see my color. I want you to see my rich heritage. I want you to see my kinky hair. I want you to understand that I am different from you and that you are different from me.
But we are the same because we came from the same place. We all came from the same place. We all came from a country in Africa. We've got to get that through our heads because people who look like you are going to be here long after people who look like me have died as a result of climate change.
And if you understand the color wheel, you artists out there, you can get white from black, but you can never get black from white.
That's right, because white isn't original.
No,
that we are faded. We are the people. No, we're the people who faded. We are blacks who faded. That's all we are, and we need to realize that and enjoy that and appreciate that and take pride in that and look at our 30th and 50th cousins of color and say, my God, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, I hope they meet some of mine so that their children and grandchildren can survive in the future. That's what it's going to take.
It is. Well, I thank you,
And
and I
it's
love you
wonderful.
for being here. Say goodbye to my brains till the next time we meet. Brains, this is the great Jane Elliott. Okay, go in. I'm going to have all of her information on the back. Love, honor, cherish your family. Get your butt up and vote for the right thing. You know right from wrong. You know a lie from the truth. Don't be so
My
hateful
dad,
and spiteful.
my dad would say, you know the difference between right and wrong. Now do the right thing, goddammit. We did the right thing. That is the way that's the way I live my life. I know the difference between right and wrong. I try to do the right thing.
You
All
do.
right.
And I love you.
Thank you for listening. Oh, I love you too, and thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and I
you.
enjoy you, and I admire you.
You humble me. Thank you.
That's the way it is. Thank you. Thank you, cousin.
For real.